Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nick, and in today's video I want to talk about shipping your reptiles, and I'm going to kind of show you, we have a couple shipments going out tonight, and I kind of want to show you what that process is like. So first things first, I guess you need to understand kind of how to ship your reptiles maybe. I go through shipyourreptiles.com. They sell the supplies that you need, they sell the deli cups you need, they sell the heat packs, the cool packs, the boxes most importantly, and they sell the insulation and things like that. Now it's very important to remember, I don't know, I think a lot of people know this, but I'm also sometimes surprised at the amount of people that may not know this just from people who've inquired to buy my geckos. Anytime you ship a reptile, it is going to be priority overnight shipping. So what that means is I drop it off to the FedEx facility. Like tonight I'm going to be dropping these guys off around, like, it'll be close to 7-ish at night. They will be at their destination, if all goes as well, before noon tomorrow. Okay, so we try to limit the travel time that way, but you can't send a gecko in the mail and it be 3-day, 4-day, you know, ground. It has to be priority overnight. We're flying from hub to hub and things like that. So that's something that's very important to remember, and if you are going to ship a gecko, please understand that it has to be priority overnight. Now another big thing with shipping animals is this. So right here, you have to label if it's a reptile or if it's a fish. You need to say what it is in like common names. So like for me, I'll say crested gecko, and I'll say how many, and then under here I'll say how many, and I'll say Corallifus silatitis, or whatever their species name is. So I write that out, and I write down how many there are and things like that. Now this is important because this is part of the Lacey Act, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm a lawyer or like I know anything about any of that, but pretty much what it says is you need to tell us what's in this box just in case. And I think it's so they know what's coming in and what's coming out, and if it's harmful or not. I don't think that this really gets looked at, but if something were to happen to where your package needs to get looked at, you need to fill this out. And another thing about it too is having a properly labeled box is nice. Perishable, handle with care, and I guess it doesn't really say that there's reptiles on it except for the bottom, but you gotta remember when you're filling this out, just remember that you're part of the hobby. And if you want to give the hobby even a decent look, you know, if you want to keep the hobby at where it is and not have all these laws passed that hurt us and make it to where we can't own fill in the blank species, then this is an important step to take so that they can't take our, you know, they can't take our rights. No, just so that they can't take our rights and they can't, you know, fill it out. And just take it serious because it is something that can affect the hobby if not done properly. The third thing I would definitely say when it comes to shipping is I bought these labels earlier this morning actually, and I checked the weather for the labels. Now technically I probably should have waited to actually purchase the labels until I checked the weather again tonight, but I didn't, so be better than me. Maybe purchase your labels an hour beforehand and check the weather to get the most up to date. Checking the weather is very important because it tells you if you need a heat pack or if you don't need a heat pack, if you need a cold pack or you don't need a cold pack. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm actually gonna pull up their temperature guidelines, and I'll just kind of read them off to you, and I'll tell you guys what I do personally. Okay guys, so something else that Ship Your Reptiles offers is they give you policies, and it kind of gives you, like, I'll put it up on the screen right now. It gives you 16 different things to pick from, and it's kind of more of the common questions and the things like that. And like, okay, you know, like, here's what is the Lacey Act, how does it work, how does it apply to reptile shipments. You know, one on here is species considered illegal or invasive. You want to make sure, you know, for us, or for me personally, I only ship geckos at this point, crested geckos. We've shipped a couple bearded dragons and a couple leopard geckos, and we haven't shipped anywhere where they're banned. And honestly, I'm not gonna blanket statement any of this, but I'm like 99% certain that none of those animals are banned anywhere. All right, so now I'm gonna read to you the temperature guidelines. Okay, and so they give you two. if it's an amphibian and other species that come from cooler climates, and then they give you guidelines on, okay, so then they give you guidelines on animals that are warmer, but it's kind of the same, but I'll just read this as if it's a crested gecko, okay? And I'll put it right here. So below 38, don't ship, wait till warmer weather. Now it's important to remember too, these guidelines are according to daytime high temperatures, okay? If either the origin or the destination temperature is 70 degrees or higher, do not use a heat pack outside of these temperature guidelines. Nullifies any ship your reptiles live arrival insurance, which we could talk about that. I personally, I don't do it because the animals that, to have the live arrival insurance on all the animals that we sell would negate any form of profit or any income coming back into my hobby. So really, once we start selling and breeding ball pythons and leeches, then maybe that's something I do consider, but for right now it's not really in my realm. Okay, so I guide for crested geckos. I guide this off of the amphibians and other cooler species in the climate. So below 38, don't ship. Now, I personally, because I don't ship if the nighttime low is 38 and under. I personally don't ship. That's a personal decision that I've made. I don't ship during the winter, obviously, and I'll ship come in March. Now there are some cases where I've delivered, like if the person said, hey, I took this day off, this is the only day I can do it, and it's 36 degrees outside, okay, I'll still ship to you. But a general rule of thumb, if we can work together and we can work it out, I'm not gonna ship if it's below 38. And that's just a personal decision, because these are still my animals, and we put heat packs in, we put safety measures in, we do things like that, but I don't want to have a mix-up where something bad happens and that animal freezes because we didn't wait a week or two. The other thing on top of that is I will always recommend you shipping to a hub. The only way I'm going to give you live route guarantee is if you ship to a hub. I'm also not a sadistic dude who's just like, oh, well, this just happened, it's all on you. I will work with you as best as I can to get you to a hub. If you're within 30 minutes of a hub, you should be going to a hub anyway. If we start getting outside of that 30-minute to an hour, because some of you guys, I shipped to a guy not too long ago who he was, I think, an hour and 15 minutes from the nearest hub. And we gotta, on my part, you gotta remember, we all have jobs. We all do things outside of just our hobby. So I'll work with you on that, but if you're within 30 minutes of your hub, you need to be going to the hub. The hub that I drop these guys off at is 25 minutes away. So, and that's where I pick up my animals too. Okay, if it's between 38 and 60 degrees for the daytime high, use a heat pack. If it's 60 to 80, do not use a heat pack and no cold pack required. If it's 80 to 92, use a cold pack. If it's 92 and above, don't ship. Okay, so for me personally, if the daytime high, if the high is, let's say, 87 degrees, okay, but I'm shipping to your hub and it's gonna be there 8 in the morning, we're probably still gonna be in the 60s to 70s 8 in the morning. I'm not gonna use a heat pack, or I'm not gonna use a cold pack in that instance. So you do have to be somewhat creative. Now they give these guidelines because they kind of have to CYA, right? Cover your butt. They can't be held liable for things like this, and that makes sense. And so that's why for me, I look at it and I go, okay, your daytime high is 74, but your nighttime low is 55. I'm probably not going to use a heat pack in that instance, just because for the most part the animal is going to be somewhat in a natural range anyway. If we're in the low 60s, I'm not worried about these crested geckos getting in the low 60s. That's not going to bother me. Bearded dragons, that's not going to bother me either. It can drop that low. Same thing with leopard geckos. We've done that before too, and we've never had an issue. So I'm very strategic on when I use a heat pack and when I don't use a heat pack. Same thing with cold pack. So it's something to just consider when you're doing it. So I think I covered all the main things on shipping. I think the last thing I just want to touch on really quick, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is cost of shipping. So I personally, and this will be really quick, I charge $60 as a flat rate for shipping. Now, some people will only do 50, some people do 55. Here's the reason I do 60. For the most part, for me to ship to most of you, it's only gonna really cost me probably 50 to 55. That's a realistic range. Now, that extra $5 on each one is to cover my boxes, and it's supposed to cover my gas for driving there, but if we're being completely honest, it doesn't. And that's not the end of the world. I'm just saying, if you're someone out there who wants to strategically look at this as a business, or if you want this to be your business model one day, something like that, it's important to understand that while yes, if you go to Ship Your Reptiles, you can find what shipping costs, but it's also important to remember that shipping's not just what Ship Your Reptiles charges me to go through FedEx. It is what I have to buy too, supply wise. So just something to consider. And that's something too where, you know, we don't do a whole lot of volume necessarily. So for me, eating those costs doesn't make as much sense as maybe somebody who's selling 15 to 25 geckos a week. Then you can do a flat rate of 50 and you're gonna have your odds and ends covered. Important to remember too, it depends on where you live. Luckily I live kind of in the middle of the country. So for me to go pretty much anywhere, I'm in that range. California gets very expensive for me. It's in the 60s at that point. The East Coast, same thing, gets a little more expensive, but if we hang out in this Midwest region, then I can stay in that 50 range, and I still kind of do enough to where at $60, I'm still able to cover my supplies, but not my gas. So, is what it is, give and take, right? A cool thing Ship Your Reptiles does is they partner with FedEx, so you don't have to. If something goes wrong, which thankfully, knock on wood, we've only had one thing ever go wrong. The animal was fine. It was stuck at a hub. It was during the height of COVID. Probably shouldn't have shipped anyway. I mean, it was safe to ship, but in hindsight, there were better days to ship, most likely. But it's when that person can make it happen. So we did it. It was my first ever shipment. Got delayed at a hub. Luckily, I reached out to these guys and they were on it immediately. They gave me updates. And that's mainly the reason I continue to use them, is because I was very happy with the customer service that I received, and I was able to comment or to keep in contact with my customer as up to date as possible, because it's a very stressful situation when we're talking about live animals here. But now let's go ahead and let's build this box so you guys can see that. First things first, take your box, slide it in like this. I always make sure this is showing. I don't know if that necessarily matters. Next thing you want to do is invest in one of these bad boys, because this will make your life oh so easy. Look at that, bang. And you come to the other side, take it up. There we go. Typically I will do this like, well, wow, that's terrible. Oh boy. Wow, cut, cut, cut. Just like that. And then what I'll come in, we come in here. And now so when you order your boxes, they come with pre-cut insulation. Cover your ears. They come with pre-cut insulation that fits perfectly in here. And as you can see, these corners line up like so. So you can see right here. And then if I turn it, you can see here, I just have to wedge that in. There we go. And then you come here, and I gotta wedge that in. So there you go. That's how you build a box. Finally, we have the cup. Fold your paper towel. Stuff it in there. Bang. A little mist. And then I like to kind of push it and then mist it up against the walls one more time. There you go. That's how you make your cup. So then you just put the gecko in here, stuff some newspaper on top, put your top on, and you're good to go. Wrap it up and ship it out. It's easy as that. But one thing I did want to do is I wanted to thank everybody for the overwhelming amount of just support on the channel, and just I mean, we've had a really good run on Morph Market with everybody, and we have a lot of cool animals on there. I think they're very fairly priced. If you guys want to check them out, the link's down below. But I just want to thank everybody for the support on the channel and then through the business and just everything. You guys are awesome, and I do really appreciate all of you. So With that said, that's gonna wrap up this video. Stay safe and stay positive, guys.